Hey guys, welcome back. In today's video, we are talking about shorts drowning in swaps, the exempted shares, how shorts are breaking the rules, and many more in this video. First, we're taking a look at this. As long as the paid trolls farms on Yahoo Finance are using the same accounts to post literally thousands of times daily, 7 days a week on AMC, GME, HYMC, and kohrs, then I'm rest assured they're still trapped in securities fraud and drowning in costly swap contracts. So whenever we see, these FUD on AMC, now again, sometimes it may be a good opinion in terms of what AMC can improve, but most of the time what you will see are baseless comments, statements that are of course talking about why AMC is a bad company, why you should sell your AMC, why you should stay away from AMC, etc, etc. But again, we know that the reason for why they do this is because they need to create the incentive for people to sell the AMC shares so that shorts can obviously cover. And again, the very fact that we are still seeing this, because this has been happening for years now. And when you take a look at all of these other stocks, when you take a look wherever it's the big stocks like Apple, like Amazon, or wherever it's some even smaller stocks, you don't see the same behavior. You don't see the same thing happening. And that's because whilst there are, of course, short sellers wherever it's in, Apple or stocks that are smaller than AMC, they aren't over leveraged. They aren't trapped with synthetics and toxic swaps. And that's why you don't see it happen for these other stocks. When aside from these news articles, from these things you see on the internet, you also see, like we talked about, the constant spoofing, the constant FTDs. And some stuff that we've covered in the past before is that for stocks like Amazon, again, if we were to use that example, you don't see spoofing. But for AMC, for GME, you see spoofing happening on a constant basis. When you take a look at FTDs, the one thing that we've covered in the past before is that AMC actually has more FTDs than any other stocks in the market. So why are they doing this if they aren't obviously affected by the price of AMC? And when you take a further look at what's happening, at what other things they're doing, you can see this. Friendly reminder that GME and AMC have been on the UK list of exempted shares since 2021. Now, one thing you already know is that for people who are obviously shorting AMC that are outside of the US, they don't actually have to report their shares. And it's why we've always said, these short data, these short report that we are seeing are very likely to be very far from what it actually is actually nowhere near the number that it should actually be giving out. But not only that, we are also seeing now how AMC is obviously on the exempted shares list. And so this has started from 2021. Now, when you make the links, when you make the connections of what was happening in 2021 and the fact that AMC and GME has been on the list since 2021, you obviously understand what it's happening. You understand why exactly that they are on the list. And so this goes back to what we were saying at the very start in terms of why are we still seeing so many things that are connected to AMC and GME with things that were obviously and that are manipulative, that are suppressing the price of our stocks. And so this is the very reason that we are still know that rest assured that they are still trapped in securities fraud and drowning in costly swap contracts. And so again, this is just one example. Another example is understanding the fact that AMC is obviously exposing $11 trillion risk for the market. OBV is now twice of what it was during these times. So nothing changed in terms of risk. They swapped and delayed the systemic risk. And this is without adding GameStop. This is why they delayed, which is something that I'll be talking about later on. And so this is going back to this article. And this is an article that we've covered in the past, where they talked about how AMC entertainment drama exposing risk in $11 trillion world of indexing. Already everyone understands. AMC and GME brought exposure to how these firms, how these short sellers operate. It brought light to all of these exploits that they've done, all of these manipulation and suppression tactics that they've applied in other stocks, but also AMC and GME, but obviously on a bigger scale. And so Back then, and this is an article that was made in 2021, back then they already said how this was exposing the risk in the $11 trillion market. Now understand that this has only gotten bigger. It's not the 11 trillion that has gotten bigger, but rather this risk, rather how big this whole situation has gotten, because they have created more and more synthetics every single day, week, months, and years, to the fact that they have ended up where they are right now. And again, we've seen how much leverage they put on it. We've seen how shorts have already been going out of businesses. We saw how shorts need to take up loans, how they need to increase their margin, how they are trying to find different ways of suppressing AMC and GME. So we obviously understand that they are not in a good situation. And again, this also applies for, like we talked about with the brokers. And this goes back to what we've said in the past with how AMC obviously had a massive exposure to, of course, the Robinhood margin requirements. We talked about how the VAR and how AMC took up 60% of that. And so this is understanding that this isn't just, these random facts that we're throwing out. This isn't some random things that we're saying. Everything that the apes has discovered, everyone that, whether it's in my videos, other people's videos, whether it's on Twitter, whether it's what other apes are saying, most of the things, and again, there are some, of course, baseless comments, but most of the things that we've talked about, as absurd as it seems, these are all things that have been backed by data. And so this is why I talked about why the squeeze will be massive. And just to see further in terms of how shorts are worried and how they're trying to protect all of these shorts from paying up hundreds of billions, if not trillions of dollars, you can actually see this. So more of the same. Financial institutions get their way. New short reporting rules for February 14th deadline delayed a year. As a result of the exemption, filings on the initial form show reports from institutional investment managers that meet or exceed certain specified thresholds will be due by 17th of February 2026 for the January 2026 reporting period. So this is something that we've already covered this last year, and we were obviously all willing and excited to obviously see this happen this year. And what this was, for those of you who don't know, and again, this was already covered back in October of 2024, was essentially we had this thing that said that any firms who are shorting a stock which is bigger in terms of their position size, that's bigger than $10 million, had to report their position. This was obviously supposed to bring more light, more transparency, more fairness into the market, of course, for the retail investors, but overall. But now, because of everything, and this, again, it has to do with AMC, it has to do with GME, and how over-leveraged these shorts are, have obviously been delayed by a year. Whereas supposed to be in 14th of February, so depending on when you're watching this, wherever it's in 3 days, 2 days, 1 day, it has now been delayed by over a year. You obviously understand how ridiculous this is, but then this links back to what we talked about. The more we're seeing this, as long as we're seeing this, rest assured that they're still trapped in this. So when you take a look at this, in terms of we have to kind of find the silver lining, which is understanding the fact if they have to do this, it just shows how over leveraged they are in their short positions. It just shows how much money is truly involved with this whole situation, how many synthetics there are of AMC and GME for the fact that they have to do this. And you can see, regardless of this exemption, abusive naked short selling as a part of a manipulative scheme remains unlawful. This makes no logical sense. The naked short selling is what resulted in the exemption. The SEC admits it, allows and provides exemptions for ongoing illegal activity. So once again, we are obviously faced with hardships. Now, this isn't something that we're obviously not familiar with. We have dealt and faced this throughout the last 4 years, and we are going to continue facing this. But what's different from AMC and GME with all these other stocks is that obviously we have a community that, again, links everyone together. Everyone's updated, everyone understands what's going on. And going back to what we've talked about in terms of the OBV, it shows that everyone knows what sort of bad plays are being here, what sort of bad actors that are involved in this play. And that's why when the OBV is twice of what it was, it obviously shows that people aren't easily faltered by what's going on. People continues to hold and even more buy more AMC. And that obviously just shows what we are doing and what a point that we are obviously making. As always, none of this financial advice, do take us a grain of salt. Make sure to do your own due diligence research, and I'll catch you guys next time.